The sound of metal echoed through the old garage, a place that smelled of oil, dust, and secrets. At first, it was just another inspection, until Ranger, the K9, refused to back down from the mechanic. No command could move him. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor as if something beneath that concrete was calling to him. Officers thought it was nothing until the first crack revealed what had been buried for years. And when the truth surfaced, it did more than shock the team. It changed the story forever. But what exactly did Ranger uncover under that garage floor? And why was the mechanic so afraid to look? Here is the full story waiting for you. But before we roll into it, tell me in the comments what your favorite dog's name is, and make sure you are subscribed because what is coming next you will not want to miss. Ranger lunged forward once more, nose pressed to the concrete near a floor drain. The mechanic stepped back too quickly, knocking a wrench from the table. The clang echoed through the garage, slicing the silence in half. The dog's handler crouched beside the drain, brushing away dust. That was when they saw the dark smear along the concrete rim. A strange chill crept into the room. The mechanic mumbled an excuse about an oil spill, but his hands were shaking slightly as he reached for a rag. The faint smell of rust grew stronger. The handler noticed that the concrete near the drain looked newer, a patch slightly lighter than the surrounding floor, as if someone had repaired it recently. Why would only that small section be redone? Ranger began to scratch the spot, claws scraping against the uneven surface. Each sound echoed like a countdown. The handler tried to calm him, but Ranger did not stop. He kept digging as though he knew something was hidden right beneath his paws. Outside, the day grew brighter, but inside the garage, the air thickened with tension. The mechanic's face turned pale. He tried to distract the officers with paperwork, but no one moved. Every eye was fixed on Ranger. Then the dog froze mid-motion, tail stiff, body rigid, and gave one sharp bark that made the room fall silent. The handler reached out, fingertips brushing the cracked edge of that lighter patch of concrete. Beneath it, something sounded hollow. What was buried under that small section of floor that made the K9 refuse to stand down? Ranger stayed locked in place, eyes fixed on that pale section of the floor. His breathing deepened, nostrils twitching as if tracing something no one else could sense. Officer Grant knelt beside him, pressing a hand to the concrete. It was cold, colder than the rest of the floor. Something about it felt wrong, like a layer hiding a truth. The mechanic kept wiping the same spot on a nearby tool bench, hands trembling just enough to draw attention. He would not look at Ranger. The other officers began circling the room, scanning shelves and corners. Everything seemed ordinary, until one officer noticed a faint line of discoloration running from that same patched area toward the drain. Why would anyone seal a section that way? The pattern was too deliberate, like someone had tried to disguise a repair rather than fix one. Ranger lowered his nose again, pawing gently this time, almost cautious. His movements were methodical, each scratch releasing a faint dust cloud. Officer Grant marked the area with chalk, signaling for a forensic technician to take samples. When the first tap of the chisel hit, a hollow echo filled the room. Every officer froze. They tapped again, same hollow response. There was definitely space beneath. The mechanic swallowed hard and turned away, pretending to organize wrenches. Ranger growled low, his tail straight and rigid. Why was a simple maintenance worker so nervous about a floor test? The technician chipped more until a small crack split through the patch. Dust rose, revealing darker material underneath soil, compact and dry. The air changed instantly, heavy with the smell of damp cement and something older. Officer Grant stepped back, letting Ranger inch closer. The dog sniffed once, twice, and whimpered, not out of fear, out of recognition. The handler had seen that reaction before during search recoveries. It was the same sound a K9 made when it located something human. A second officer photographed the spot. The mechanic started pacing, muttering about inspection protocols. His nervous tone only drew more attention. Ranger moved toward him again, blocking his exit. Then, unexpectedly, the mechanic dropped his rag and backed against a shelf, eyes darting toward the drain. That subtle glance was enough. Grant caught it. He knelt by the drain again, shining his flashlight deeper this time. The reflection showed more concrete dust and a fragment of something metallic wedged beneath. A small chain link, old and bent. Why would there be a chain embedded under fresh cement? The mechanic's chest rose faster now, his entire posture unraveling. Outside, backup arrived. Officers sealed off the area, preparing to lift the slab. The mechanic protested, claiming he had sealed the spot after a pipe burst years ago. But the soil beneath told a different story, undisturbed except for the top few inches. As the team prepared to lift the first section, Ranger turned toward the open garage door. His ears perked. He gave a short bark toward something outside beyond the police tape. Officer Grant followed his gaze. In the distance, an older sedan sat parked across the street, engine off, windows tinted. Someone had been there the whole time, watching. The air around the garage thickened as officers moved to secure the perimeter. The sedan across the street remained still, yet something about it pulsed with quiet tension. Ranger stood alert, body angled between the car and the cracked floor. He seemed to sense that whatever was buried beneath the cement connected to whoever was waiting out there. Officer Grant gestured for two officers to approach the car. Their boots echoed sharply across the asphalt. But before they reached it, the engine roared to life. Tires screeched, and the vehicle bolted down the road, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Ranger barked fiercely, lunging toward the sound. His instincts were relentless, as if he already understood the chase was not about escape, it was about guilt. Back inside, the forensic team finally lifted a large piece of the cement slab. Beneath it, packed soil covered a layer of tarp. One officer reached down, brushing away dirt. That was when the metallic glint reappeared. The same chain Ranger had pointed to earlier, now revealed as part of a larger shape buried below. The handler's heart sank. He had seen this pattern before. Ranger had not just sensed a hidden object. He had sensed a presence. The air carried a faint, organic scent mixed with oil. Why would someone bury anything under a garage floor? And why would a mechanic guard it so desperately? The mechanic now sat on a stool, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Every so often he glanced at Ranger, then at the open section of floor, like he knew what was coming. Officers restrained him as they pulled the tarp free. Underneath lay a rusted toolbox, heavy and sealed with two padlocks. It looked ordinary, but the surface bore faint scratches, initials barely visible beneath grime. The letters matched a missing person case file from months earlier. Officer Grant exchanged a look with the lead investigator. This garage had not just been a repair shop, it had been a front. As the officers documented the find, Ranger suddenly turned again, barking toward the back wall. His paws scratched at a line of old tires stacked neatly in a corner. Grant followed, pulling one aside. Behind them, the wall paint looked uneven, like someone had hastily covered a hole. A small air vent sat low near the floor, partially filled with dust and cloth. When the officer reached inside, he pulled out a folded envelope. The edges were yellowed, stained, but the paper inside was crisp. The letter contained sketches of car parts and beneath them a list of names. Most were crossed out. Only one remained unmarked. A single question filled the silence. Was that last name the person buried beneath the floor, or the next one meant to disappear? The lights flickered. Ranger barked again, louder this time, pulling everyone's attention back to the mechanic. The man's face had gone pale, his breathing shallow. He muttered under his breath about debts, about promises gone wrong, but no one could make out the full words. Then, in one quick motion, the mechanic collapsed to his knees, staring at the open section of floor. He pointed to the box. His lips moved silently. Grant could read the word proof. Whatever was in that box was not just evidence. It was a confession sealed in metal and buried in guilt. As the sound of shovels striking cement filled the garage, Ranger's breathing steadied. His eyes stayed locked on the half-open box, waiting. He had led them this far, and the truth was about to surface. But when the lid finally cracked open, everyone froze. Inside was not what any of them expected. The lid of the metal box creaked open, revealing stacks of faded photographs, small envelopes, and a few personal belongings. Everything smelled of oil and time. Ranger took a step closer, lowering his head beside Officer Grant, as if grounding the moment with calm focus. Each photo showed the same person, a young man wearing the same garage uniform as the mechanic, his smile genuine, his arm around an older worker. The mechanic looked years younger in the images. Something in his expression had changed since then. Guilt now replaced the pride once visible in those frames. Inside one of the envelopes, officers found documents, time cards, handwritten notes, and a letter addressed to a company manager. It described a dispute, missing pay, and a threat made out of desperation. The missing worker had vanished weeks after that letter was sent. Why would the mechanic keep all this buried instead of turning it in? The answer began to surface through his trembling confession. The man admitted the worker had been his apprentice, almost like family. A fight over stolen parts had escalated one night, and a terrible accident had followed. In panic, the mechanic had hidden the truth, sealing it under the garage floor, then watching it harden year after year. He had convinced himself it was gone until Ranger arrived. Officer Grant stood silently as the forensic team confirmed what lay beneath the soil. Human remains wrapped in old tarp, preserved in stillness. The photographs and letters matched the missing worker's file. The truth had stayed buried beneath oil and concrete, but Ranger had sensed it through scent and instinct alone. For a moment, the entire room fell quiet. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. Ranger sat beside the open floor, not moving, his gaze fixed as if honoring what had been lost. It was not triumph, only understanding. In the days that followed, investigators connected the dots. The car that had fled the scene was traced to the garage's former owner, now linked to a network involved in insurance fraud. The mechanic had been silenced by fear for years, caught between guilt and threats from above. The worker had discovered falsified repair invoices and tried to report it. His death had been covered as an accident. It was not just a crime of impulse. It was a cover-up buried under layers of silence. When the case closed, Ranger received commendation for exceptional instinct. But for those who had witnessed that day, his actions went beyond detection. He had forced the truth into light when no one else could. At the ceremony a week later, Officer Grant stood before a quiet crowd in the precinct yard. Ranger sat by his side, tail resting still against the pavement. The mechanic's confession had led to multiple arrests, and the family of the missing worker finally received closure. The chief stepped forward, pinning a silver medal to Ranger's collar. The crowd clapped softly, but the sound carried weight, not celebration, but gratitude. In that moment, Ranger lifted his head toward the horizon, ears twitching to the faint hum of city noise. He had done what no one else could, uncovered what was meant to stay hidden, not for justice alone, but for peace. Officer Grant knelt, brushing his hand across Ranger's fur. The air carried no tension now, only calm. The case had ended, yet its memory would stay etched in every corner of that old garage. Sometimes it takes a dog's instinct to uncover what human silence hides. Ranger's courage did not just solve a case. It brought peace to a name forgotten under concrete. Another story waits just beyond the next call, and you will want to be there when it begins. Stay close, hit subscribe, and see where the next trail leads.